Welcome back to the third video where we're going to sew this book together. We are going to use a long stitch method to sew our signatures into this cover. So I'm just going to get a needle and thread. I like to use a curved needle when I'm bookbinding, but it really doesn't matter. You can use a straight needle. I just learned with a curve, and that is what I am comfortable with. I also have some waxed thread. You can use embroidery floss and run it through a candle. You can buy waxed thread. You can try using embroidery floss without waxing. The waxing just helps it from not tangling. And then you need a pair of snips. So I am measuring out here a length for each signature. So I had 4 signatures. And then I always add like an extra length and a half of thread. So you're measuring the height of your book because we're going to be stitching down the spine. So thread your needle, tie it off, and gather your signatures, which should be all torn down or cut down to size, with holes punched, and your cover with the holes punched. And if you're just tuning in now, there's 2 other videos that show you how to make the cover and gather your papers. So go watch those now before we start sewing. One thing that I want you to be sure is that you know which signatures are the first, second, third, and fourth, and which way is up, because we want to make sure that the holes match up with the holes in the cover. So gather your first signature, and we're going to start from the inside of the signature in the top hole. Sometimes I find that my holes from my awl are not quite as thick as I needed them to be, so it just takes a little finessing to pull through. And we're going to go from the inside cover in that top hole to the outside. We're going to go back in to that same hole that we just came out of. And when we're pulling through, we're going to leave a little loop on the outside of the cover. Just about a centimeter or so, like that. We're going to go back into the signature through that same first hole that we originally came out of. I will say, because we're using all sorts of different papers, this is a little finicky, but if you're just patient and take your time, you'll get it. Go back through that first hole. Try not to hook through your thread from first entering the hole, because if you stitch through the middle of the thread, that becomes really frustrating and you pretty much have to start over again. So pull that through, check that you still have a little bit of a loop. If it's large, like make it large if you want to start, just for safety. We can always shorten it later. The nice part about the waxed thread is it's a little sticky, and so it won't pull through super easily. So now we're going into our second hole from the signature and through the cover on our second hole. Pull that all the way through, and we'll go into our third hole through the cover and into our signature. You notice that I'm using clips to keep my signatures together. That's just really helpful to help keep them all in place and not have the pages sliding all around. This is where I realized I put my signature in upside down because I wanted that page right there in the middle to be facing the other way. And I decided I didn't want to start over again. So we'll go through the 4th hole into the signature and then out through the cover. Pull that taut and into our 5th hole from the outside of the cover. Through to our signature. Sometimes I do find that it's not as easy to shoot it all the way through in one go. Sometimes if you find it easier, go through the cover, pull your string through a little bit, and then go through the signature. And we're going to go out through our final hole, the 6th hole. Out through the signature. And here is a good time to go through and tighten up your strings. Remember, we're still keeping that little loop, but you can tighten the rest of the stitches. I find it easiest to pull one side, then the other side. It's not really as easy because you're stitching through such thick amount of material to just pull from one end. You have to pull stitch by stitch. Now we're going to start the 2nd signature row of holes. So we're at the bottom, going back in hole number 6. And we'll go through that cover in hole number 6 into the bottom hole 6 of our signature. And into hole 5. And through hole 5 of our cover. To hole 4 from the outside cover through back to the middle of the signatures, signature, into hole 3 from the signature, out through the cover, the more snug you keep all of your strings here in your stitches, the more snug your signatures will be against the spine, and you won't have a floppy book. And then from the outside cover going into hole 2, back in through to your signatures. And then back out through hole 1. And this is where the loop is going to come into play that we had left at the very start of our stitching. You're going to go through that little loop, a stitch through your thread, so we've come out hole 2, or row 2, hole 1, we've hooked into the loop. I'm just now going to go through and tighten everything because I tightened up that loop. And it won't pull through now because our long thread has been looped through, sewn through that loop. I used my needle there to pull out the slack on that thread. If it's too hard for you to grab, just hook under and pull. Okay, we are going to start signature 3. So we've hooked through that loop, and now we're going into row 3 for signature 3 through that top hole. This time I made sure I knew which one was up because I wanted her face to be upright. And we'll go back into hole 2 through the cover. In through hole 3. Back out hole 4. And through hole 5. This hole I found can be very finicky, so I had to go a few pages at a time and find the points of my needle to make sure they were hitting the holes. But I got it. And then we'll go out through hole 6, back to the outside of the cover. And similar to hooking through our loop at the top of the spine, at the bottom of the spine, we're going to hook through that previous stitch that was between signature 1 and signature 2. And we're going to come back in through our final, for our final signature, back in through hole 6. Just use that other clip to clip all the other pages that are already sewn in out of the way. again, I had directional pages, so I'm making sure I have it facing the right way up for how I want it in my book. So in through hole 6, back out through hole 5. In through hole 4. I thought the first 2 signatures were going so smoothly that they would all come together easily, but of course the last 2 signatures are giving me grief. Just be patient. If you need to repunch your holes, repunch your holes. Sometimes I find that they become a little directional and they're not as easy to find when you're going through the opposite way. Like this stitch is going the opposite of the way the holes were punched from the center out. And if it's really annoying, stitch through your cover and then through your holes. Take comfort that even experienced bookbinders have difficulty. So if you're having difficulty, you are not alone. All right, back out through hole 3. See, I'm trying to keep my stitches tight as I go, which is helpful. Into hole 2. So because I flipped this around, my holes aren't exactly lined up, which is not ideal. This is a hard signature. I have not struggled quite so much in quite a while making books. There we go. All right. Last stitch. Take that off. Tighten everything up. Through our previous stitch. We'll go back in our same hole. And I like to tie it off back here. So when I came back in the last hole, I did not go into the signature. I tied it off at the back of the signature. So Sometimes I will also tie it off in the center of that signature, but I want to leave it pretty because of that spread. So using the second stitch of the signature, I'm going to just knot off and tie off that end of that string. And then trim it, and you're done. And that will just stay tucked in there because it's waxed. Okay, a little bit of headache, but we're bound. And you can see the brown paper that I forgot to trim off, and then these that I had discussed about being too long, and I still can't decide what I'm going to do with those. So this, I'm going to just see if it'll rip right against the cover. This craft paper never rips straight at all, so just kind of a fun thing about it. I do love working on it, so it will always be in the books. Okay, I'm still going to come back to those because I can't quite decide, but I like that I only have green thread. I only packed one spool of thread for my little makeshift travel studio, and it goes beautifully with this book. One thing I realized, this one went in upside down, even though I tried to intentionally make it the other way, so I might trim off that little tab because it sticks out a little bit, and that kind of drives me crazy. Yeah, that's coming off. And I'm definitely going to have to trim these. So that's our little junk journal. Complete, not perfect, but they never are. This, unfortunately, because it was the layers and the kind of cardboard that it was, is all like puffy. But you can take your bone folder often and like push those back down, but I will probably stick a little bit of matte medium or glue or something in there just to make sure that those papers don't peel away. If I was to attach a string to, or like a cordage to wrap around it, I could go through here. I've done that before with other journals that I have. Let me pull it out. This one was Messy May from 2024. And I attached my ribbons with a little grommet, which I really do like the look of. Or, oh, I don't think I have any other ones here. You can also, I could put a grommet right here in the middle, which is really hard to do now that the book's made, but I could have done that to start with, and tied an elastic in a loop with a knot, found the middle of my book. That's where the grommet would be showing, put my elastic through there, and then it could be this elastic that stays on. You could run grommets on the back cover here and here and run an elastic strap that kind of comes around this way, or sometimes I'll just tie it with ribbon. I can't decide if I'm going to tie it yet. hopefully we'll have to see. The papers need some good strong loving of staying folded because it already wants to pop open. But that also tends to be the nature of my books once they're done anyway, because I stuff too many papers in them and then I fill them with really ephemerid pages. So this one, actually, once I completed this book, I took it apart and re-sewed it together to be looser on the spine so that it would fit a little flatter, because it was before really wedged out because this spine was really tight. I think I have a video about that, about re-sewing that one. And this book is going to be in a similar vein of my big ones, because these were all, every page was different kinds of paper. So I have flip throughs of all of that, but see how thick they can get, especially once they're fully loaded. So thanks for spending time building this book with me, and now we get to the next fun part of filling it. Bye.